straight away, I could feel it.
It's as if I've been, stabbed with something hot.
I ended up being ambulanced to A&E because the pain got so agonising, I was just screaming on all fours.
I really just want this material out of my body now, and I will fight till the end to make that happen.
Doctors say 1 in 10 of us will develop a hernia, and it doesn't matter how old you are, what sex you are, or how fit you are. You can be a rapper like Professor Green, a professional footballer, or even The Rock.
When a patient comes to see me and says, I think I've got a hernia, what they're describing is a bulge, classically in their groin. What that bulge is a protrusion or a pushing out of something from inside your tummy. The best way to actually fix the hernia is surgery. And nowadays, what we use is a material which is synthetic called Proline in the form of a mesh.
NHS England says a mesh repair is its recommended method when treating a hernia, and it's the most widely used technique. It can be done in 2 ways. Open surgery, where the surgeon makes one cut into the groin, or keyhole surgery, where a camera and surgical instruments are inserted through several holes close to the belly button. The surgeon then pushes any bulging tissue back into the abdomen and covers it with a piece of mesh.
As you can see, it's very pliable. It's very easy to lie flat like a pancake on the muscle. Also, you can see it's very, very thin and quite soft.
Collagen, tissue, and sometimes even nerves will entwine through the mesh. The once weak spot strengthens as the body grows into it, but it also makes the mesh difficult and sometimes dangerous to remove. The NHS carried out more than 60,000 groin hernia repairs in England between 2015 and 2016. But what happens if something goes wrong?
I can feel like...
Helen Ablett had a groin hernia repair in 1998. She was told if she ignored it, it could get bigger, and she also risked having a strangulated hernia, which can be fatal. A few years ago, Helen started feeling pain and has spent most of this year off work sick. It wasn't until she saw our recent reports on the scandal surrounding vaginal mesh implants that something clicked.
I went to see my GP after I had my hysterectomy, and I said that I was still in pain. And he looked at me square in the face and he said, Claire, we've had you out on an operating table. There is nothing there to see. You are depressed.
You're very brave.
And I phoned my husband and I said, I can't live anymore. I can't go through this. I actually do think I'm believing the doctors. I think it's in my head.
So you completely related to her?
Absolutely, yes. The same material, the same lack of acceptance that there was anything wrong.
Helen's had colonoscopies and countless scans, but they've all come back clear. Her GPs called her pain a conundrum, but she and her husband Terry are convinced it's the mesh.
It feels like something is either moving or loose inside me and is pulling when I walk. It's pulling on it, and it's whether it's moved or it's attached itself. I can feel. It feels like a foreign body inside me. It was just right in my groin, right down the back of my thigh, and right into the back of my knee.
Helen sent us an email telling us her story, and she wasn't the only one. We've heard from lots of people who've had hernia mesh operations and now live with chronic pain. They came from across the UK, varied in age and gender, but some similarities were striking. They say they were never warned about the risks of chronic pain. They claim they've been in pain for years and some have problems walking. They say they've had many scans and tests which have all come back clear. They also claim GPs mainly only offer pain relief and some suggested psychiatric help. And doctors have apparently repeatedly told them mesh is not the cause. Hernias are extremely common, and so is the hernia mesh technique. Clinical studies suggest around 10 to 15% of groin hernia patients will experience chronic pain as a result of the repair, and that the pain can last years. One major study claims it could be as high as 50%.
But that's a very, very small
Supporters, though, say it's a strong repair, infection is rare, and it's quick and easy for surgeons to learn and replicate.
It may not be just the mesh that's causing the problem, but the fact that they've had an open surgery and there's a lot of scar tissue around these nerves that have caused the pain. It is true, it could be the mesh. I'm in no doubt that that may be causing the intense scarring.
Because we don't know yet, do we? Absolutely,
we don't know. And I don't think anybody hand on heart can say whether it's in fact the mesh or not the mesh.
Well, I used to play all sorts of sports, from racket sports, tennis, squash, badminton. I used to play football. I used to do quite a lot of gym work, circuits. There was a point where I was actually training for a marathon. It's quite frustrating. Yeah, to be sat here, this is a chair, isn't it, I suppose, for me now.
Martin Kinsey had a groin hernia mesh repair in 1999 after a bike accident. For a long time he was fine, but then he started getting abdominal pains. The 39-year-old says he now feels like he's 90.
It's seriously painful. It's as if I've been, stabbed with something hot. I don't want to eat. I don't want to venture out too far. My worst day is getting up and feeling twice my age and not being able to put my own underwear and socks on, and having to spend the day incapacitated. I've had that many tests throughout the last 6 years that they've ruled out pretty much everything that this could possibly be, other than pursuing the mesh complications.
There's a Canadian hospital which is world famous, well, at least in the groin hernia world. The Shouldice Hernia Centre says it has nearly a 100% success rate, and one of its surgeons has told this programme they only use mesh on 1 out of 100 patients. Instead, they prefer a different technique. The Shouldice hernia repair uses the abdominal wall, which is split into layers of muscle. Once a surgeon has placed a bulge of tissue or bowel back inside a patient's body, they will then overlap and secure each layer, like buttoning a coat. Its supporters say it naturally strengthens the abdominal wall, but NHS England says this style of repair has been hard to replicate in its hospitals. I've spoken to many surgeons, and the one thing they all seem to agree on is that the Shouldice technique gets great results. The problem is, you have to be very skilled to do it. Sue and Peter Jones have been married for nearly 4 decades. They are part of an ever-shrinking group of surgeons who can do the Shouldice technique.
It gives an interesting...
The pair retired last summer but spent much of their careers removing mesh from groin hernia patients. Time and time again, they met people from across the UK who'd not been warned about the risk of life-altering and long-lasting pain.
It really is a common problem. Patients that have come to us with chronic pain have said they got friends at work with the same problem. One guy, as so many do, ended up in a pain clinic. And he said on his first visit, the waiting room at the pain clinic was full of patients exclusively who'd had operations to repair their groin hernia using a mesh. At least half of all patients who have a mesh repair will have a smooth recovery and never have any problems. But in our view, the risks of a poor outcome are so bad that I wouldn't want to take that risk.
The Shouldice technique relies on a surgeon's skill, which companies can't really make money from. They can, however, make money from selling mesh. Peter and Sue are convinced that is why the synthetic material dominates the hernia industry. The couple want NHS England to teach more surgeons the mesh-free method so patients have more of a choice.
The NHS being strapped for cash, that's another indication to do the non-mesh repair. Meshes cost money.
Some surgeons say that the Shouldice technique is too difficult for your average surgeon.
But once you've learnt it, it's like riding a bike. Once you can do it, you can do it.
Do you think the NHS does too many hernia mesh repairs?
Yes, I believe it does. If enough people got together and said, we are suffering this pain and we were not told about it, that could seriously put a dent on the operation of a mesh repair of a groin hernia.
The Shouldice technique doesn't hold all the answers either. For starters, it can only be used on a hernia which is in the groin. Chances are the mesh that was used for your hernia was something like this.
Oh my God. No wonder it itches. I mean, it's really thick, just like nylon. It's like nylon.
Some surgeons say it's very light and flexible and durable.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also quite thick. It's, whoa.
Layla Hackett was told she had an umbilical hernia in 2013, 6 months after she gave birth to her daughter.
Whose party is it?
Surgeons placed a large piece of mesh near her belly button to cover the hole.
Straight away, I could feel it. I could feel the whole thing. I could feel exactly where it was. It was across there. And it started out being agony. Absolute fiery burning agony. Obviously, it didn't carry on being like that. But it never stopped hurting. So what else happened today? Have you finished your
Layla told her GP about the pain many times, but was told it was nothing to do with the mesh. While studies show around 1 in 10 groin hernia patients will experience chronic pain following a repair, surgeons say more research is needed for less common types. There is, though, plenty of anecdotal evidence which suggests pain is a problem.
It was like somebody scratching you from inside all the time, not being able to get clear of this horrible feeling. It's so unpleasant and it's so constant. Eventually, I ended up being ambulanced to A&E because the pain got so agonising I was just screaming on all fours.
Layla's bowel had twisted after the mesh became stuck to her internal organs. A surgeon spent 4 hours picking the material out.
And he said, well, it turns out you didn't have a hernia, you just had this separation of muscles, so we haven't had to put a new mesh back in. And I can tell you now, I knew there wasn't a mesh before they told me that, because I could just tell it felt normal again.
Many surgeons would argue that there's no scientific evidence that it's the mesh causing pain. What do you think about that?
They're not going to achieve any scientific evidence about this unless they take those of us who've had these operations seriously and unless they study it, because at the moment they're poo-pooing people, and of course there's no evidence if you don't look for it.
Neither Layla, Helen or Martin have a record of which company manufactured their mesh. Martin is even paid to view his medical records, but is still none the wiser. So I've spoken to some surgeons who've told me that the hernia industry is dominated by companies who produce mesh, and the reason is because for financial gain. What do you think about that? Is that true?
Well, as a surgeon, I don't get involved in financial gain during an operation. My purpose is to do the best thing for every patient. Now, of course, the companies that produce meshes are businesses, and they're in the business of trying to make money. However, a lot of these companies that produce meshes are competing with each other to try and produce meshes that are better and better, because they know that we have very good principles and we will not use anything that we're worried about. I encourage patients to persist and say, I'd like to see a specialist, I'd like some treatment, and the treatment is out there, and there are specialists who will see these patients, be very considerate, patient, and give them a treatment plan.
Although at least 1 in 10 groin hernia mesh repair patients will experience chronic pain, NHS England have told this programme the technique has been undertaken extensively and successfully for several decades, and no significant level of concern has been raised. The Royal College of Surgeons says while any poor outcomes are regrettable, mesh implants are the most effective way to deal with a hernia. In a statement, they say the risk of infection is rare, but they do not reference the risk of chronic pain. For years, Martin has been suffering. He was unaware there were people across the country who have similar stories to him, and that one even lived nearby.
Hi.
Hello.
Hiya.
Helen.
Martin.
Martin.
You okay?
Nice to meet you.
And you?
Yes, thank you.
Take a seat. Yeah. I've had an operation really I didn't need. And, 6 years worth of investigation, bloods, scans, everything pretty much by the sounds of things that you've had. I've had an ultrasound as well. They've tested my kidneys, my liver.
Yeah.
I've been tested for Crohn's, lupus, celiac,
Celiac, yeah, I've had that as
Lyme's.
well. Because I naively assumed when I first realised what it was, they would be able to remove it.
Yeah, it's several operations apparently.
Yes, that's what I've been told.
Supporters of mesh say it's improving all the time and the synthetic material is here to stay. But some surgeons claim hernias need to be taken more seriously. They want a mesh-free repair to be widely available on the NHS, and they want dedicated teams of surgeons to do the operations so there are fewer mistakes. In America, there are currently thousands of hernia mesh lawsuits taking place. It's thought it won't be long before something similar happens here. But for Helen, just knowing she's no longer on her own is enough comfort for now.
Yeah, meeting you has been a complete revelation. It's helped confirm everything that I knew inside, but was beginning to doubt.
I will fight tooth and nail to get what I'm entitled to. They've done this to me. I can't remove it. They've got to take it out.